And welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Lando Norris and what he must do to improve, especially if he's going to beat what looks to be the four-time world champion Max Verstappen, who is, quite frankly, at the top of his game at the moment. So the race had an interesting article, and we're going to get into it. Apparently it's a 6-minute read. This thing here, I can't get rid of. It's really annoying. It's over. Well, yes, it's kind of like a reminder of potentially where Lando Norris has failed this year. But anyway, 10 days to go to Las Vegas, apparently. But, it's gone. Barring a miracle, Lando Norris, it says here, is going to lose the 2024 World Championship for the drivers. Yes, it was. There was hope. Not much hope, but there was hope. There still is hope in Las Vegas. Just not much. Max Verstappen has one hand, complete hand on the title, and fingertips, let's say. But what does he need to do? So, as we know, Verstappen has had plenty of criticism over the years for his aggressive racing. And it landed him, for example, a 20-second penalty in Mexico, to the point where I think the stewards now, especially going into next year, are they're gonna have hawk eyes for anything that happens there, because it's all gonna kick off, and what they don't want is a crash. What they don't want is a Silverstone 2021, a Monza 2021. So the race here saying, does Norris have to adopt a more aggressive racing style? Well, Mark Hughes from the race, and this is the article from the race, has said the recurring criticism of Lando this year is he's not being too aggressive. Prime example, for example, does that even make sense? If we go take the United States Grand Prix start, where he pretty much left the door open. Yes, he squeezed Verstappen a bit, but there was a Verstappen-sized door open, and Verstappen went through that door and said thank you very much, and then managed to push Norris off the track, which was cheeky, but still, had that Verstappen-sized door been there, I think Lando Norris would have blocked Verstappen, and then ultimately we wouldn't have had that lap 50-something controversial incident where he tries to pass Verstappen, because I think Lando Norris was ultimately faster. Mark Hughes from the races said there is a certain logic in saying, okay, I'm going to yield next time Max adopts the yield or we crash approach, and I'm going to have the crash and keep crashing into Max until he learns there's no point in racing me that way. But he said, but that wasn't a situation Norris could adopt this season, because, and this is one of the reasons why, there are more than one, I know, but this is one of the reasons why Norris is not winning the championship, I feel. So, by the time Norris's car, he makes a point, became competitive. And that was about round 6 in Miami. So it wasn't the best car, but it was competitive. Max already had what was a really big points lead. So any collision between them is always going to favour Max. I think you're going to beat me. We're going to collide. Ha ha. Ha ha. You did not score more points than me. Albeit I didn't score any points either, but I didn't lose any points. So Hughes said there's no two ways about it. Max exploited that, and Lando knew he had to avoid contact above all else. So there are two roles. One he sees as he's the bully, the other is the bullied. But there's obviously the championship leader and the guy that can afford no non-finishes, which was Lando Norris. He said, but is there, and they're questioning whether there's some kind of psychological barrier there for Lando in the future over adopting this no compromise approach. He said, I think it would require a step from him, not to the extent of initiating things like making no attempt at a corner in order to get past or defend. I don't think his racing etiquette would ever allow him to do that. And now, if you want to see that, the best example, and I bring it back slightly controversial, is Lewis Hamilton. Now, Max Verstappen is very, very aggressive. We saw it at Imola at the start. We saw it at Spain at the start when Max did his do or die. You either hit me or you let me through. Hamilton ended up damaging his front wing by going off at Imola and almost going off the track pretty much at Spain. Max was doing this, and he's done it a lot. Then came Silverstone, which, yes, the stewards found it was Hamilton's fault. But the argument I'm going to make is, was that then a case of Hamilton saying, no, I'm not going to yield anymore, and then Max turning and thinking Lewis is going to yield, thinking it's his corner, he's going to yield, I've done this all the time. But this time, Hamilton did not yield, and they ended up having that quite famous I was there Silverstone 2021 clash. Maybe. But then Max still continued to race like he did, because a lot of the time, like Lando, towards the end of the 2021 season, Lewis was coming from behind. But Mark Hughes goes on to say, but at the very least, I think it requires him to sharpen up on his car placement in these battles, going in with a full knowledge and expectation of how Max will race him. Yes. He said, I think we saw Lando's turn 4 move in Mexico, that he's already begun doing that. He was quite aggressive because he was absolutely as hard and ruthless there as he needed to be in how far he pincered with Max, and he left it up to Max to see if he would run him out wide, and sure he did. That's why Max got a penalty. But his initial placement there was spot on, and that's exactly how he's going to have to race him. Now, this is something that's interesting. Off-track assertiveness. So Verstappen's Blonde Radio engineers exchanged with this engineer there, with a JP or Giampiero Lambiase, is kind of savage when you think about it. Norris's traffic is not so savage, but what they're suggesting, and I kind of agree, is he needs to be a bit stronger on the radio. He said, Ben Anderson says, I feel he's a bit too passive in terms of how he deals with McLaren and the key decisions and trying to turn a race in his favour when there's a marginal call to be made. He did that though. In Silverstone, I want soft tyres, I want the same as Lewis, which ended up ultimately being his demise of not winning that race. I think had he chose the medium tyres, Hamilton chose the softer tyres. And I think between the two of them, both are good on their tyres. In the same car, I think Hamilton is better on the tyres. As you know, at Silverstone, right towards the end, he chose soft tyres like Lewis, and that's how Max passed him, because Max, I think, was on the mediums. And then he made a go for Hamilton. And luckily for Hamilton fans and the British Grand Prix, he won. What a moment. And but they do say on the race that you could criticise Max for being too assertive and too abrasive, but that's the culture that Red Bull has allowed, and it feels productive. Yes, it is, and I always wince when he starts swearing more than I think the other drivers do on the radio. But anyway, obviously there's only more than one way to do that, because it's a tricky psychological game that's related to how other people perform. Lando does need to be assertive. And the next one are starts. Yes, let's get into it. Here is this. I mean, I thought this was fairly. I did think this one's fairly. It's all the starts from Lando. This is the start from Spain. It is sped up, where he just not good at all. This is now the start, I believe, from Hungary, where he tried to squeeze Piastri, and again he kind of like loses out. It's just not good at all. Another start, I believe. Where is this one? This was, that start, wait a minute, let's wind it back a bit. This start is obviously Zandvoort, where, he just loses the start again. And this is quite significant. This is Piastri passing him at Monza. It is very quick. You'll see it for a split second, where Lando left the door open, but I don't think, to be fair to the Lando on that one, I don't think Lando Norris expected Piastri to essentially beat him. And there we go. Very sad. So starting from pole, not brilliant. And here we go. Once again in the USA. This is what I'm talking about in the USA. Here, Lando's already squeezing. He is ahead of Max Verstappen at this point. He's ahead. He's doing well. But then, look, here you go. He leaves the door wide open for Max Verstappen. He had the chance to squeeze him. He had the chance to block him completely. Leaves the door open. And then Max, to be fair, he is too aggressive. And then he runs both of them off the road. Ultimately, no penalty. So, fair enough. And this is in Brazil, where he does get initially a good getaway. But once again, it's that second phase of the start where he loses out to George Russell. So really, really sad stuff. So our start's a problem. Well, as we know, he lost the lead on lap 1 after his first 7 pole positions, leading to everyone criticising his starts. But the race is saying that our panel feels Norris's reputation for poor starts is misleading and more a reflection of the McLaren and Red Bull's relative setups, which I think is interesting. Ed Straw says his starts are generally very good, pretty good. If you look at the overall start performance, he's up there. Mark Hughes says, and this was quite telling. So take heed, Lando fans, you have something to smile about. Max's reaction times, Mark Hughes says, are usually slower than Lando's. I think it was Carlos Sainz who made the point that on low grip surfaces, the Red Bull is just dynamite off the grid. I think it's more technical, but Max's reaction times are usually slower than Lando's, according to Mark Hughes. They've also said, is he just unlucky to be up against Verstappen? Well, I'd argue, they said, Norris is already a world champion caliber driver. Yeah, I could see him winning a world championship. given the right circumstances. But the 2024 Norris, I hope, is going to be weaker than the 2025 Norris. He is going to have to lick his wounds after what has been, let's be fair, an epic season for him and McLaren, and come back stronger. And he said, but there have been drivers that have won world titles with a lower level of overall performance than this. So is Norris a great driver, just doomed to have to take on an even greater one and potentially unable to topple his main rival as a result? Well, when you look back at that, when you think of, for example, Michael Schumacher, in those, we had a few competitors. Had it not been for Michael Schumacher, we would have had, for example, Mika Hakkinen, maybe a 3-time world champion, maybe we would have had David Coulthard even, potentially being a world champion. Ralf Schumacher, one Montoya in the Williams, potentially being world champions as well. They were all really, really solid drivers. Mika Hakkinen obviously was a world champion. But there's a and it does make you think, doesn't it? Ben Anderson has said, judging his peaks as a driver this year and those performances where everything come together like Zandvoort and Singapore, Norris has looked on absolutely the right level. So there's no question in terms of performance as a driver, he can absolutely do it. But as ever in Formula 1, he said you need all those ingredients to come together at the right time, and I think you do. And remember, in terms of having a competitive car, he sort of had one in 2021, and he does have one in 2024, and this is the first year consistently where Norris has had a competitive car. Max has had one from 2016 when he stepped in that Red Bull, and we're now in 2024. He's also more experienced than Lando Norris. But what we do need, I mean, this is the Think Different meme, is that Lando Norris here at Brazil, he needs, there we go, he slides off, as you can see. When you look at your top here, he breaks there and just kind of loses it, goes off into the scenery, and everyone says, yeah, think different, Norris, 2024. Yeah, I think I'm a bit harsh, really, isn't it? But still, think different, Lando Norris. I mean, I just feel for him. Can Lando Norris beat Max? Absolutely, I think he can. Would he need a car advantage? Not particularly. He needs a car he's happy with. And he needs Max not to have a really dominant car. Both in a similar car, depending on the weekends, he may well. The one thing that Norris has potentially got going for him, and also going against him, is Oscar Piastri, the brilliance of Oscar Piastri. But if you can beat Oscar, and Oscar can be between him and Max Verstappen, that's really going to help. If Red Bull keep Perez, I think Max Verstappen is potentially not winning that world championship if it's as close as this, in my opinion. But there we go. So, if you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be fantastic. You give us a like, hit that notification button so you do not miss a video. And stay safe. And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you.